This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast with original independent science fiction written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the science fiction podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma, and I've got Chapter 18 and Chapter 19, Part 1, coming up on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. I missed a week last week. I don't usually do that. I try to keep you with a new chapter or two or chapter and a half every week or so. But last week, things just got a little out of hand, but now, I think, a little under control. But man, life's still throwing some curveballs my way, I'll tell you. Dealing with an electrical issue at home, which is just odd. At any rate, I'm back at it and with you this week with part of Chapter 19 and all of Chapter 18 on the episode. Now, according to the Domo, the Eldred are gathering forces for an all-out assault on humankind to drive us out of our outposts and colonies and keep us in our place, penned up in the solar system within the orbit of the asteroid belt, apparently. And BC's strangely manifesting mental abilities seem to have given him a glimpse into the pretty terrifying mind of Dolomay, the resurrected ancient enemy, now commanding his own small rogue fleet. He, too, is preparing to assault and raid targets. But what he's trying to do is to hold back while the Eldred and human forces clash so that he and his people can come in after and kind of pick up the pieces. But before all that, breakfast, as we get into Chapter 18 and Chapter 19, Part 1, on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. A thank you to patrons who help keep the podcast going. Did you know you can become a patron for free, too? There is a free level now you can follow along without donating anything, though you do miss out on some stuff. I mean, there is a benefit to becoming a paid patron. That's the whole idea. You can do that for $2 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. It's all available at patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. Or just go to glowinthedarkradio.com or mikeluoma.com and follow the link to Patreon. We are almost at the end of June as July kicks in. So does the Smashwords July Summer-Winter sale. It's an ebook sale. And I've got a couple of my big ones available on sale. You can get the Vatican Assassin Trilogy, which you've been listening to on this podcast, and or the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus, which is all of Alibi's stuff in chronological order, his chronology, of course. Both of those are going to be half price all month during the Smashwords July Summer-Winter sale. So you can get them for 50% off, just $2.49 a piece for each ebook. That all begins July 1st and lasts through the month of July, so the 1st through the 31st. That's enough book news. Let's get into Chapter 18 and Chapter 19, Part 1, as we get into more of Vatican Abdicator next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Hi, I'm JC. My co-host Cindy and I host the Fix It Home Improvement Podcast. We cover projects that every homeowner should know and top-rated products for home and garden. You can check it out on your favorite podcast app. It's called Fix It, F-I-X-I-T, Home Improvement.
Now here's Vatican Abdicator Chapter 18 and Chapter 19 Part 1 on Glow in the Dark Radio.
BC begins issuing orders over breakfast. He's got one of the SAIF generals on the comm. I want a command and control ship here, near Ceres Central, BC says, but out next to a trans-space jump point, so we can move fast if we need to. I'll need direct and complete access to Dragama and his ships at the asteroid base, and a link up with the shipyard too. BC turns to Anita. I'm going to need you to coordinate the evacuations. We need to be careful. I don't think we want it to look like we're evacuating, if at all possible. We don't want people to panic, and we don't want to let on to the Eldred or Dolomay that we know anything. BC rubs his head, an anxious headache threatening just behind his eyes. Prime Rep Campion? A tech calls over to BC. BC looks up. Yeah? We've got Commander Dragama on the line for you. Dragama checks in with BC. His super squadron of 5 of their best ships and crews stands at ready at the asteroid base.
We're set here, Prime Rep. We've got our ships arrayed around the base,
Dragama says.
We have reserves hiding out on more distant rocks. The asteroid defenses are linked into our ships. You know, sir, with only 5 ships on defense, the base's laser defenses should be able to fire more rapidly than they could in a more typical defensive situation. With so few friendlies in the sky, we can blanket even larger swaths with cover fire.
Great, BC says. Thanks, Dragama.
Dragama out!
Anita, what's happening with the scientists? I've got Krish and Del coordinating their resettlement on Lunar Prime. They've been working all night. Most of our brain trust is already safely back inside Mars's orbit at this point. I'm not really sure that's any safer, to be honest, BC says. At least they know I'm thinking of them, he says, smiling. Anita frowns at BC's attempt at dark humor. I'm sure they'll be touched at your concern, she cracks. I'm trying not to take myself too seriously, he says, trying to explain. These are serious times, Anita observes. Commander Aziz checks in from the shipyards, now in lockdown mode.
Just 5 ships left on the assembly line, Prime Representative,
Aziz says.
We've been shutting the line down and securing it behind them, step by step.
The commander of Black Squadron has 4 squadrons under him at this point, guarding the shipyards. Black, white, green, and gold squadrons are all now answering to Aziz. BC has also sent extra ships Aziz's way. The shipyard defense forces have been bolstered by the new Stingers coming off the shipyard's assembly line.
What do you want to call the new squadron?
Aziz asks. What? BC asks, momentarily confused.
All the extra ships. There are enough for another squadron,
Aziz explains.
What would you have me designated?
How about Silver, BC offers. Silver Squadron?
Silver it is, sir,
Aziz confirms.
Out for now, Prime Representative.
BC, Anita asks, getting his attention. What? Krish is on the comm for you, says it's important. He says he's afraid this might get lost in the shuffle. This, BC asks. This what? What does he want? I don't know, Anita says. He didn't tell me. BC sighs. Okay, put him on.
BC!
Krish greets him. Hello, Krish. How's the resettlement going?
It's annoying,
Krish admits.
Scientists are big and horrible babies when you disturb their nests. Lots of complaints. Fussy, fussy, fussy. But that's not why I'm calling.
No?
No. I've got something for you. Maybe a new, weapon. I think.
You think? I'll take it. We need any advantage we can get. What is it, Krish? BC asks.
I've been calling it a trans-space nullifier. Del likes to call it a trans-space dampener. His name seems to be winning.
I don't care what you call it. What the fuck is it? And why should I care now? What is it? A trans-space whatsy?
A trans-space nullifier,
Krish says enthusiastically.
We reverse engineered it from the Eldred shield technology.
Can you explain it to me in layman's terms? BC asks.
Let's see,
Krish says, and he pauses, mulling it over.
Well, the Eldred shields work because they nullify or dampen the energy directed at them. Makes sense, right?
Sure.
Well, that's a kind of passive application of the technology. It waits to be engaged to work, if you see what I mean.
Go on.
Well, I began to wonder if the tech could be used more actively. Instead of waiting to get hit, could we project the dampening effect back at the energy beam or whatever's source?
Could you?
No.
Krish says, disappointed.
An active application like that grew significantly weaker as it radiated from the point of its generation.
Wait a minute. BC stops him. What?
The signal didn't carry far enough to be effective.
Krish clarifies. Gotcha.
But
Krish says with a bit of a flourish.
here's the good part. Although the projected dampening field was too weak to stop direct beam energy weapons, it turns out it does dampen another field, a weaker energy, more diffuse field we all know and love, the transspace field, and the dampening effect could work over longer distances.
You can dampen the transspace field? BC checks him.
Yeah,
Krish says. I didn't know there was a field involved, BC says.
oh,
Krish says.
let me back up. The transspace drive creates a field around a ship that allows it to, work. With the active application of the adapted tech, we could dampen or nullify that field, and then the ship wouldn't be able to jump. The transspace drive can't work without the field. We can take the field away.
What's the range? How far away can the field effectively dampen? BC asks Krish.
It has an effective field of about 10 kilometers.
10K in every direction?
More, 5K in every direction, making a circle around 10K across.
Krish explains. Can the device be triggered remotely? BC asks, thinking. Doesn't seem like you can use it on a ship. I mean, wouldn't it stop you from jumping too?
Yeah, that's something we've been working on. But I suppose you could set it up, rig it so that it could pulse off remotely.
Krish says, thinking out loud. Well, it's not much of a weapon otherwise, is it? BC asks him. Not if our ship is affected when we trigger it.
Oh,
Krish says.
yeah, I see your point. Maybe it has to be a remotely triggered device.
That would be great, BC says, trying to sound encouraging. And in the meantime, send your working model out here pronto, BC orders.
What?
Krish asks, surprised. Pronto? Anita says, giving BC a look. I thought pronto sounded good, BC admits, aside.
So, you want this one?
Krish asks.
It isn't remotely triggered. Not yet.
Yeah, I want it now. Anything they don't know we have, I want. It's an advantage. Why don't you come out here with it and rig up a remote trigger for it on the way?
Okay, I'll get it out to you today. You really want this on your ship?
Hell, I want one on every ship, BC tells him.
Oh,
Krish says. There's silence as the statement sinks in.
I've got a lot of work to do then.
Krish finally says, breaking the silence. I guess you do, BC agrees.
Okay then. Well, thank you, BC, for letting me say my piece.
Krish says. Thank you, Krish. This is big. Nicely done. BC congratulates the scientist.
Thanks, BC.
Krish says, brightening.
I'll get the testing unit out to you ASAP.
He signs off the comm. Huh. Maybe this is something we can use. Float it into the middle of their fleet, stop the Eldred from jumping, and blow them up. Command and control ship ready and waiting, Prime Representative. A safe officer reports to BC after he strides up to the breakfast table. CNC is parked in proximity in near orbit of Ceres Central. BC looks around the breakfast table, out at the milling crowd of people eating, drinking, and starting their day. Anita notices him gazing at their surroundings, knows he's ready to head to his ship. I'm beginning to know that look, she tells him. You're mentally taking it all in before you go, aren't you? BC almost blushes, mildly embarrassed. Funny, she can already see through me. Guess so, he says. Go ahead, Anita says. Your ship's waiting for you, Prime Representative, she says playfully. You want to join me on the CNC ship? He asks her. I do, she says, but I can't. You can't? My place is here. Ceres is my command. I see, BC says in mock hurt. BC, come on! I'd have stayed on the asteroid base if I thought that made sense. He keeps playing hurt. That's okay, I see. You know I'm right. He smiles at her. I know, but I don't have to like it. She smiles and then leans over and kisses him on the cheek. She leans back. I've got to get to my command center, she says. She gets up from the table. I'm sure we'll be talking soon, she tells BC. Let's hope it's just routine reports and pleasantries, BC says. Pleasantries, huh? Anita cracks. That's what you call them? She smiles again. Sure, he says. What else do I say? How do you respond? Never mind. Anita turns and heads away across the cafeteria and off towards a command center. Guess I'll head for my ship. Hope they don't attack while I'm shuttling across. I wonder how long we do have. How much time until the Eldred attack? The Tomo said within the month. Are they right? Chapter 19. Now it's a waiting game, BC says to the captain of the command and control ship as the two sit on the quiet bridge. BC's settled into a deck chair on the bridge of the ship. His after-breakfast shuttle ride up from Ceres Central was short and uneventful. It's still quiet, with no sign of the gathering storm, no sign of massing Eldred forces that the Domo claim are readying for attack. Yes, sir, Mark Chang, the young captain says, agreeing with BC because he has to. Who are we waiting for first, sir? He asks BC. Nothing's etched in stone, Captain, but we think we'll see the Eldred first, based on our intel from the Domo, BC says. I think that's right, too, based on other information, BC says mysteriously, not wanting to discuss his dreams with the captain. My other information also says Dolomay will wait to strike until after the Eldred have defeated us. After we're defeated, sir? That's their plan, BC clarifies for Captain Chang. Dolomay hates the Eldred. It's an old grudge between them, BC explains. So he wants to wipe out as many of them as he can. He thinks the Eldred will be easy to mop up after they've tangled with us and defeated us. He's sure the Eldred will defeat us. Nice to know he's rooting for us, Chang wryly observes. He changes back to an official monotone and tells BC, Prime Representative Campion, you have a high-level communique coming in. It's Governor Amaris Schwartz of Cat's Eye. Thank you, Chang. BC picks up an earpiece for a private call. Put her through to me. Chang nods. Governor Schwartz, what can I do for you? We've decided to stay, Schwartz says outright, matter-of-factly. What? Is all BC gets out. We're staying here on Cat's Eye. Most of us. I can't give you any protection, BC tries to explain. Schwartz cuts him off. I know, she says, and we're not asking you to. The safe ships have already left here, Prime Representative. But we're not following them. This is our home, Representative Campion. We want to stick it out here. What can I do? What can I say about that? Don't? Well, Governor, I don't know what to tell you, BC says honestly. I can wish you luck, give you all my best for all that's worth. But we need all the Solar Alliance forces back here to guard the homeworld from this next vast assault from the Eldred. I know. We all know that here, Campion, she tells him. We know you're doing what you think you have to do. Truth be told, most of me knows you're right. But my heart is here, in this place. Our hearts are here. So we'll take our chances. We're staying. I'm not arguing with you, BC tells her. We don't have the luxury of time for arguments anymore. I don't have the resources nor the will to come and get you all by force or persuasion. So I wish you luck, Governor Schwartz. It's all I got. I'm sorry. Who knows? If they wipe all of us here out in their next assault, you folks might be the few remaining humans left alive in the galaxy. The last of the human race, BC says morosely. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Schwartz exclaims. Hope for the best, but expect the worst, BC offers. That's an old one. Still true, though, BC says. Good luck, Amara. Thank you, BC, she says, and then signs off. BC sighs. Any more governors on the comm, Chang? BC half jokes. Wonder if I'm going to have a full-scale rebellion on my hands. Actually, sir, there is one waiting. Great. Governor Capituna is holding for you, Chang informs him. Well, that's a different story. Anita, what's up? BC greets her as he fires up the comm. Just checking in, BC. Did Amara Schwartz just call you? She did. You talked to her already? Yeah, she called me before she called you. They feel really tied to the place. Yeah, I got that, BC says, a little frustrated. On a more positive note, Ken Grissom and his people just checked in here at Ceres Central, so you don't have to worry about Rigel 4 doing the same thing. What about the other two? Do you think they'll want to stay out there? I think they'll be coming back here, BC, Anita says, speculating, trying to reassure him. There may be some stragglers that stay behind, but nothing like Cat's Eye. They're, a little more, passionate, I guess. I see. Have they always been that way out at Cat's Eye? Pretty much, she tells him. You've never been there. It's beautiful. The Cat's Eye Nebula lights the nights there an emerald green, paints the daylight sky aquamarine. It's inspiring. Makes you fall in love with the place, even though it isn't Earth. It has its own beauty. Very poetic, BC observes. I can tell it's touched you. Funny. It's where we first met the Eldred, she tells BC. We had no idea what we were in for. She changes the subject. How are you doing? I'm good, I guess, BC tells her. As good as can be expected. Got a lot of nervous energy. I hate the waiting. Me too, Anita says. Hate waiting. But waiting is all we can do now, BC answers. It doesn't mean I have to like it, Anita counters. Waiting. 1 day. 2 days. BC is having trouble sleeping on his command ship. There have been no more dreams of Dolomay, but little real sleep either, and no true dreams of any kind at all. 3 days. Krish arrives at Ceres Central with the Transspace Nullifier, and then heads out to the project base to teach Dragama how to use it. BC sends a couple other packages out to the base with Krish too. 4 days.
It's on board the base now, and Krish tells me the remote trigger will work, so I guess we've got a new weapon. The other packages are mounted in place too. We're sending Krish back to Ceres Central this afternoon. Other than that, it's more of the same.
Thanks for checking in, Dragama. Keep running the drills, BC orders, and signs off the comm. Everything seems quiet at the asteroid base. If only the Domo could have given us a better idea of when the Eldred will strike. They just don't know. I'm sure if they did, well, even if they didn't tell us, I bet they would have sold the information to Dolomay, or tried to anyway. He's out there. He's waiting too. We're all playing the waiting game. 5 days. 6 days. BC continues trying in vain to get a good night's sleep. Nervous energy keeps him wound too tightly to truly relax, so he never falls into a really satisfying slumber. Impossible to sleep. Bap! In between days 6 and 7, in the middle of the night, all the lights in his room and on the ship come on at once, shattering the dark and scattering BC's thoughts. Bap! That's the alarm. This is it. Bap! BC jumps up out of bed. He heads for his clothes and shouts out for the comm. This is Bernard Campion. Give me a situation report. Representative Campion, it's the Eldred, sir. They're finally attacking. But, sir, I've never seen so many ships together at the same time. Far as the eye can see, sir. Keep it together, Chang. We getting any intel from Ceres on how many are out there? Negative, sir. They say they're still counting. Well, that can't be good. Expected, sure, but still.
500 Eldred targets.
A voice from Ceres Central cuts in.
That's here, our location. The asteroid base reports approximately 2,500 hostiles surrounding their position. We also have a report of about 1,000 ships now surrounding the shipyards.
Any other ships sighted? Other presumptive targets? BC asks.
Several seemingly random Eldred patrols have been encountered throughout Earth and Mars orbits in the last 15 minutes, comprised of 4 or 5 ships apiece. There is no indication of how many of these patrols may be out there.
Great. Over 4,000 ships? And this is just their first wave? Holy shit. Any shots fired yet? BC asks.
Not yet, sir.
Ceres Central reports.
They're just waiting.
Good. Thank you, Ceres Central. Jang? Yes, sir? I'll be on the bridge in just a minute or two. Let me know if anything changes. Will do, sir.
That was part 1 of Chapter 19 and Chapter 18 of Vatican Abdicator on Glow-in-the-Dark Radio. A Transspace Nullifier? Could be a good weapon. Once or twice even, anyway. And Cat's Eye won't emergency evac. They're kind of stubborn that way. And now the Eldred actually do appear to be attacking. Find out what happens in part 2 of Chapter 19 on our next episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. A reminder that you can become a patron and help support the podcast for $2, $5, or $10 a month, or you can do it for free and just follow along, although you don't get all the benefits. I will caution you that. It can all be done at patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio, or go to glowinthedarkradio.com or mikeluoma.com and follow the link to Patreon. And as July comes our way, so does the Smashwords July Summer Winter Sale. And you can get my Vatican Assassin Trilogy or the Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus for half price all month long. 50% off, just $2.49 a piece for the ebooks for each of those at Smashwords. You'll find the link in the show notes. And that is all for this week. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. Thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation is copyright 2023 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License, CC by NC-ND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.